right here. And of course, they are by and large a public sector union too, because many municipal employees and state level employees work, well, they're SEIU members. So, yeah, that also lends into who is really controlling the governments from the local all the way up to national in our country. Because the SEIU is also the union that runs a lot of the VA workers. Think about that too. So who's really running the country? Because their SEIU is by and large gaining power over the bureaucracy, who handles and manages the day-to-day affairs of the functions of the government. So of course they have a stake in anything the government does, and of course they want more government in charge of more things, because the more the government's in charge of, the more they get to control. So that's the news, kind of the rest of the story behind my little trip to participate in city-level politics yesterday. And I encourage everybody to do something like that if you have the opportunity to. Find out what's going on, put your voice in action, put your brain in action, and get involved in how your day-to-day life is managed and governed by the powers that be. And it's also a good idea to make sure that they don't try to step in and tell you how to live your life either. You know, it's your job to tell them how to do their job. It's not the government's job to tell you how to do yours. And sometimes you have to just remind them of that. They seem to lose sight of that once in a while. So that's kind of the update there. And we have other quick topics to talk about, folks. We're quickly running out of time here. So I just do want to bring in some of the things that are kind of going on here in Texas. But first of all, let's hear from Governor Rick Perry about what Texas is doing for Texas veterans. I've played this a couple of times before.
Our men and women in uniform have valiantly served and profoundly sacrificed for our nation. That's why Texas is expanding staffing at the Texas Veterans Hotline with experts trained to help veterans deal with the VA. Callers can learn what they qualify for, and in the most urgent cases, TVC experts will work directly with the VA to help veterans get the answers and care they need and deserve. Call the hotline at 1-800-252-VETS. Thank you.
And yes, that's Governor Perry heard from. For those of you who are veterans down in Texas or are in the military and planning on separating and heading to Texas for education purposes or for work, like I've got a buddy who's in school right now or just finishing up school right now to do something within the energy industry, and he's looking for potential jobs, and one of the potential locations is here in San Antonio, Texas. So he may be heading down here, and he's a military recent retiree, retired within the past year from the Army, 20 years. So if you have a friend like that who may be coming to Texas or going to Texas if you're not here, you go ahead and give out that number to them. Let them give that call. You can give that call when they're a resident of another state to kind of understand what benefits Texas could offer them when they relocate down here. So go ahead and give that number out, folks. Again, it's 1-800-252-VETS. And speaking of Governor Perry, today the remaining force strength from the Texas National Guard, both the Army Guard and the Air Guard, are heading to Operation Strong Safety to support the Border Patrol and the state-level Department of Public Safety, in other words, police force, down along the border. And Perry's coming under some pretty strong criticism for that, because the National Guard is being labeled the largest taxpayer-supported crime watch activity, because, as some people have stated, due to posse comitatus, they're limited in what they're allowed to do. So pretty much all they can do, according to many analysts out there is just kind of sit and watch and report to law enforcement, let law enforcement handle things. But on the flip side of that, I do want to agree, or do want to say that they have a point with the posse comitatus. However, when you have forces coming across our border, and some of them, not all, but some may be intending to do either criminal acts or terrorist acts within our borders, or they're cartels and they're armed and coming across our border illegally, that's an armed invasion force, folks. And when you have that, you do have permission of our defense, our military, to repel that kind of an invading force. They've done it throughout history. Even despite posse comitatus, you still had the U.S. Army and the cavalry going in and quelling major insurrections and major invasions coming from everywhere from down south of Mexico, from the territory regions before they became states, when you had the indigenous Americans kind of rising up and saying, this is our land, get off, and involving an armed conflict. So it wouldn't be a first if the National Guard down there on the Texas border saw a bunch of armed cartel members with AKs and U.S.-provided AR-15s, thanks to Eric Holder, coming across the border, and they used armed force to repel that, deter or repel that invasion. There would be no violation of posse comitatus if they do that, because they're coming from outside of our borders, an external threat trying to enter in. So I want to remind those analysts who bring all this posse comitatus stuff up that if the threat's coming from outside the United States across the border, then that is a legal and proper use of our military to repel that kind of an armed force. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, they have about 1,000 Texas Guard troops heading down, and more than 2,200 actually volunteered for the mission. So they only needed 1,000. They had more than twice that say, "I'll go, please send me." And of course, that's a great tribute to our armed forces, whether they're active duty or National Guard or reservists, willing to stand up and do such an important mission, and do so properly and with honor. But Governor Perry had a few words to say about the start of the operation, and I have his press release in front of me, folks. And he said, "Texas put out the call, and you have answered. Your mission is clear: to be a visible presence to deter criminal activity and contribute additional eyes and ears to assist law enforcement and Border Patrol agents along this border. At stake, there are lives of innocent people along both sides of the border and the safety and well-being of communities across the state and our nation placed in jeopardy by the criminal activities of transnational gangs and drug cartels." So there you have it, folks, in Governor Perry's own words about the mission to the border on behalf of our Guard and Reserves, or the Texas National Guard. So there's kind of some of your military news for the day. And other military-related news, though, I'm probably going to be posting these up on my Facebook. I know I cross-posted them yesterday. They came from friends who are still active duty and have posted them up. But I do want to talk to everybody a little bit real quick here about PTSD. Those awful words or awful letters. A lot of people have no idea what PTSD is, so they have made up their minds that it is something that it is not, that people that have it act a certain way. That is completely untrue. There may have been a rare case here or there where somebody acted in that extreme way that's been portrayed in movies and everything, but by and large, you have people with PTSD, whether it's from combat or it's from some other traumatic event in their lives because they've never served in the military, and it happens, or it's a police officer or a fireman or a hospital worker, an ER medical tech or nurse or doctor, they have PTSD. Not all of them, but there are people who do from those jobs. Like, you can have PTSD from a severe car wreck, folks. And then there's other things, being abused or battered or raped, or subject to a violent crime or a home invasion. Those are all causes. So you have people with PTSD all over the country. Your next door neighbor, heck, for all you know, your own brother or sister may have it, and you don't even know it. Or your own spouse, or your parents, and you don't even know. But you give people with PTSD this stigma, this false stigma, as though they're severely broken and can't do anything for society. And that is so false, because people with PTSD do a lot more than you realize. Like I said, many police officers have it, and they're still on the job. It doesn't get in the way of their job. If anything, the hypervigilance caused by PTSD makes them more aware, allows them to look around and see the threats that are out there to the general population and determine more quickly and more accurately what is really a threat and what is not. And the things that are there that are a threat, where they catch just that small little glimpse, that little indicator that other people would miss, allows them to look further and keep an eye on that threat. And then, of course, more of the threat gets revealed, and they are able to stop the action before it gets too severe. How is that a bad thing? I don't see anything bad in there. So it's more prevalent than people think. And yet, as soon as someone goes to get a job, or go and do volunteer work, or hang out in a park with their kids, or go to a library, or pick your social event, or your work-related employment opportunities, and somebody mentions, yes, I'm a combat veteran, people automatically assume, they have PTSD, they're wacko, they're going to go nuts and go postal. No, not going to happen. Sure, people with PTSD get into situations where they get a little bit uncomfortable. The majority of us, the vast majority of us, recognize those situations. We know when we're entering into them, and if we start to feel uncomfortable and start to feel that hypervigilance, we look around, we see if there really is something there to be worried about, and then we tell ourselves everything is okay. Or if it's not, we keep an eye on the bad things. So, folks, just because somebody served in the military and somebody served in combat or served overseas in a combat zone, number one, it doesn't mean they have PTSD. And if they do, it doesn't mean that they're broken, that they can't do something valuable. If anything, like I said, it means they can. So I'll put these graphics up on my Facebook, and maybe I'll try to tweet them out a little bit later. There's some pretty good graphics that kind of reveal a little bit of the truth about post-traumatic stress disorder and combat PTSD. The other thing I want to remind people about is I have the I don't want to call it a pleasure because it's not necessarily that, but I've got the opportunity to look at some of the things coming out of the APA and the ACA, the behavioral health professionals out there. And when the latest Bible for diagnosing mental disorders or mental conditions, called the DSM, came out, the DSM-5, they reclassified PTSD from being an anxiety issue to having its own, or being part of its own new classification, which was kind of a smart thing. But they came under fire from a lot of the military behavioral health specialists, because the military does not see PTSD as a mental disorder, as a mental illness. It is deemed an injury. So they wanted the D, the disorder part, taken off. And the ACA and APA released a statement that kind of clarified why they did not remove the D, the disorder, from PTSD. And it's because, as they very succinctly stated, people need to be better educated, because they automatically assume that disorder means an illness and that there's something broken and wrong, and that is not the definition of the term at all, and people need a better education. So instead of wanting us to take the D off, maybe you need to better educate and inform the people what the D actually means. It means that the person was changed in a manner that isn't what their norm was prior to the traumatic event. So you have to look at it from that perspective, that the disorder does not mean illness, nor does it mean broken. It just means changed from what was the normal order beforehand. The order got jumbled. So, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Priorities sometimes need to be realigned for different reasons. So that's my my spiel today. My soapbox moment is a little bit of PTSD awareness for you folks out there. So go and, if you run a business, go and hire a veteran. You'll more than likely be very pleased with your choice if you do so. And with that, folks, we're winding down on the end of the show for the day. Today, this Friday, August 15th, 2014 show. Also winding down for the end of the week. So, with all that in mind, I'm going to say goodbye and let you all enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you right back here on Monday from 8 to 9 live. And, of course, if you listen to the podcast, whenever you want to listen to it. And we'll kind of fade you out here a little bit, listening to a little bit more of Mr. America. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Mr. America, look what you've done. Yeah, looking at the country is not what I intended. Gotta start to make a change before the never-ending story of a failed nation runs straight out of luck. Like $1 million Perry movies, you suck. All your little have-life is still selfish and want more voting in your self-interest now instead of the core principles that made this country both honest and true. Free to speak, worship, pursuit of your happiness too. With all the money you fly, you gon' be needing a big freeze. Hate the size of the Fed like Jesus hated the fig tree. As the spending goes up, you gotta borrow some more. Borrowing from the Chinese like, oh my lord. Instead you just tax more, you're increasing the size of the federal government. Yeah, the Georgia surprise. You'll be done like Detroit, man, no you ain't coming back. Forget it, I'm out, I'm Muslim.